Hi guys, welcome to this Django crash course. So the main purpose of this video is to obviously introduce you to Django and show you the basic concept you need to get started working with Django. Just to show you what Django is and to understand how it works. I also want to show you guys that I have my own YouTube channel at Code with Tommy, where I teach more about Python, Django and web development in general. So you can go there and check it out, check out the videos, and I also appreciate if you subscribe. So guys, before we get into this video, I want to tell you to go subscribe to my newsletter on my website. So once you subscribe, you're going to get my Python ebook for free, and then you can subscribe from this link. It's going to be in the description below. So having that said, let's get straight into this video. So guys, before we get started with today's tutorial, I just want to quickly give you a brief explanation of what Django is. So Django is a web framework built with Python, which means that you can use Django to build web applications using the Python programming language. So Django supports both front-end and back-end functionality, which makes it very good for building full-stack web applications. And it also has some built-in features like user authentication, databases, and some other things I'm going to talk about later in the video. So having that said, let's dive straight into the tutorial. So whenever you're working with Django, the first thing you need to do is to install Django on your computer. So we're just going to come down here. I open my command prompt. Right here in my command prompt, I just need to make sure I'm on the folder in which I want to create my Django project. So before creating the Django project, we need to make sure that we have Django installed. And since Django is a Python library, we can easily install Django by typing pip install Django. So now this command line is going to install Django for us, but I already have Django installed, so it's going to tell me requirement already satisfied. But if you don't have Django installed, you should go ahead, download that and then install it. So as you can see, it says requirement already satisfied. So let me just close that up quickly. So now that we know that we have Django installed, the next thing we want to do is to create a Django wrap. So we're just going to say Django -admin start project, and we're going to say my site. So what this command line does is that it creates a new Django project and names it my site. So Django admin start project is the command line to create a new Django project, and then after that, what is going to come next is the name of the project you are creating. Let's say you're working on a chat system or you are building an e-commerce application. You can say Django admin start project e-commerce site, anything. This my site can be replaced with the name of the project you are building. So now you see it didn't show us anything, but if I go into this file directory right here, I'm going to see that a new folder named my site has been created. And once I open it up, I'm going to see that it has these files there. So these are the default Django files that are automatically brought there whenever you create a new Django project. So now let's go back to the command prompt. Let's just go into my site folder, and once I press dir, I see manage.py and then my site folder. So let me just quickly explain what all these files are. So here in this manage.py file, it's just the file that runs everything in your Django project. Let's say you want to run your app on your local host, you want to do some migrations to your database, or you want to create an admin interface. This manage.py does everything for you. Now, you don't need to understand everything I'm talking about now. Later in the tutorial, you're going to get it. So right here in my site, all these files are also needed when you're building your Django project. Settings.py used for configuring some things like your database, installing your apps, URLs for making URLs routing. And let's just dive straight into this tutorial. So now that we have this, we can just come into our Visual Studio Code, click on open folder, and then we want to open up that folder. So I'm just gonna go into that folder, which I think I named, yes, my site, and select folder. So it's gonna open up here in Visual Studio Code, and we're gonna start with the tutorial. So now we can see that the folder has been created, and then it has these Django files. So now after creating a Django project, the next thing we want to do is to create a Django app. So I'm sure you'll be like, we just created a project, why do we need to create an app? So it's always recommended to create an app, mostly when you're building, let's say large projects, like let's say you're building a social media. The main project is the name of that your social media. Then let's say an app can be different sections in that your project. Like if this, instead of my site, let's say it's named social media, then under it you can have an app for the chat system. You can also have another app just for the notifications or different things. So an app is basically just a section of that your project. Now for us to create a Django app, we need to go back into our terminal or our command line interface. Right here, we need to make sure we're in this manage.py folder. So wherever the manage.py file is, that is the root directory of your Django project. So since we know we are in here, what we just want to do now is to create a Django app. And we can simply do that by saying Django-admin start app. Now the only difference within this and this command line is just start project and start app. When you're starting a new project, you say start project. Once it's a new app, you say start app. Then we will say the name of the app. Let's say the name of the app now is let's just give it anything like my app. So as I've explained, the name of the app is basically what you want to do in your project. So now once I press dir again, I'm going to see a new folder has been created named my app. If I come back here, now you can see we have a new folder named my app. It also have its own files. You're going to understand these files later in the video. So now that we have all these things set up, what we want to do now is showing you the main features in Django. So the first thing I want to do is to run our project and see what it looks like. So I'm just going to open up my terminal here in Visual Studio Code, so I don't need to go to command prompt all the time. So it's opening up. You should give it a second. So that's done. Now when we want to run our Django project on, let's say, our local browser, what we're just going to type is python manage.py run server. Now this command line only is going to run this our project on our browser so we can see what we are building. Now you can see it says starting deployment server at localhost 8000, which is 127.0.01 column 8000. So now once we can just copy this, and then we're going to go into our browser and paste it. So that's our localhost. As you can see, it says the install works successfully. Congratulations. Now this is the default Django template that shows when you create a new project and everything is working successfully. But we don't want to show this to our user. Let's say we're building a site. This is not what we want to show to our user. We want to show our user our own project, our own front end, our own design. So we can do that using URL routing. Let's go back into Visual Studio Code. So let me just close up this terminal. Right here in Visual Studio Code, what we're just going to do is to make URLs. So URL routing is used for specifying different URLs in your project. Let me come back to the browser and explain in further details. So let's say I go to youtube.com/codewithtommy. Now you can see that there is youtube.com only, and then we can also go to youtube.com/codewithtommy like this. Now those are two different URLs. The first one is the URL to the home page, which is without any external addition, while /codewithtommy, as you can see, is also another URL in this YouTube app. So I'm sure you get the concept of what URLs are. For us to do this in our project, let's say our project is www.mysite.com/myapp/notification/anything you want. We will configure all these things using URL routing. So let's just dive straight into Visual Studio Code and do this. So the first thing we need to do is to come into our project folder, which is my site. And then what we just want to do is to come into urls.py file. So right here, we can configure our URLs here. But it's mostly recommended to configure it in your app. I like doing that personally. You can configure it anywhere, but just follow these steps now for beginning in Django. So right here in my app folder, you'll see that it doesn't have a urls.py file. We need to create that manually. So we're just going to click on create file, say urls.py. We can close this. Now we have a new file right here in our app. Let's quickly minimize that. What we need to do now is to just say from django.urls import path. Now this is from Django, which will allow us to specify URLs. After importing path, we're going to say URL patterns will be equals to a list. Now this list is going to be the list of URLs that are going to be present in our project. So now let's say path, this is to specify a new URL. Now once I just do something, what are these called? I think these are called, once I put this sign and in the middle is blank, that is specifying the home page. So I'm going to say views dot, let me say home, and name equals home. So what this is this is specifying for the home URL. If it's slash notification, we're going to do something like slash notification, or we can just write notification. Anyhow you like it, everything is fine. So once we do something like this, it's gonna, that means we're specifying for slash notification. But once it's blank, like the way it is now, this is for the home page. That means when someone just comes to www.mysite.com, this is what this specifies. So we're saying that once the user comes to this URL, it should go to views.home. Now where is views.home? Views.home is going to be a function in this our views.py. So obviously we're going to need to import this views.py here for us to be able to use it, and we're going to do that in a second. So let's just come to this name. Now this name is very important, so that when in your template file, that's in your HTML file, when you want to go into different let's say different pages with your hyperlinks and stuff like that, you're going to use this name as a reference to this URL. Let's just say this name is a particular identification for this URL. Now what we just need to do is to make sure that we first of all have views imported. So we'll say from this import views. That means from this folder import views. Now we need to come into views and then create a new function named home. So this is how to create a Python function, and then it needs to take a request, and then we can just send an HTTP response. So we're going to import it from Django. We're going to say from django.http import HTTP response, like this. Now what this is going to do, we can use it to send an HTTP response. I'm going to show you in a minute. So what we're just going to do now is to say return, and then we're going to return an HTTP response, saying HTTP response. In the brackets, we're going to specify an HTML tag, anything, just HTML. So we can say an H1. Let's also make sure we close that, and we can say welcome. Now once I save this and make sure that I save this, and I come back to my page and hit refresh, you can see now nothing changes. And why is that? That's because all this URL we did, the URL routing, we only did it in our app. But we need to also do that in our project, so our main project will recognize it. So we're going to come right here. What we're going to do is not the same thing. In this urls.py file from our project, I'm first of all going to import include. Now this include is going to allow us to include a URL from our app. So I'm just going to specify the same thing. That means once a user comes to the home, what should happen is that it should include the URLs of my app.urls, like this. So once the user comes to the home, it's gonna go to my app.urls, which is this, look for the home, and then render this URL. And then once it wants to render this URL, it's gonna go into the views.home. Views.home is this home function, and it's gonna send an HTTP response. So let's check it out. Now once I refresh, you can see now that I have welcome. Now this is how to basically send a simple HTTP response in Django. Let's go back. We can type anything, and let's say we want to have another p tag and saying I. Let's close it. You can save it, come here, refresh. Now you see that we have I. So we can basically edit HTML in here. But as you know, this wouldn't make sense when you're building a real project, like a real large project. So what we need to do for that is to add our template file. And when I mean our template file, I mean our HTML file. So instead of just returning this HTTP response, we want to render an HTML page. Let's say home.html or index.html. For us to do this, we're going to come into our root directory. Let me just close this up. And then in our root directory, I'm going to create a new folder this time around. I'm going to name it templates. Now this template folder is where all my HTML files are going to be located. So in here, I can just create a new file and name it, let me say home.html. Now here, I can type in my HTML or anything I want. Let me just leave that blank for now. But if I just, let's say, put in my HTML here and come back and refresh, it's obviously not going to see it. We need to do something. Now for Django to know where all our HTML files are located, we need to tell Django where it is. So we're going to come into my site folder, open up settings.py. The first thing you need to do is to make sure that you import OS. Now sometimes Django have this imported automatically, but if you don't see it yet, just import it. Once we have this imported, we're going to come down into templates and we're going to look for theirs. So now that we see theirs, what we just want to search, what we just want to type in here is base there, like this, slash templates. So instead of slash here, it's gonna be comma, something like this. Let's save it. So right now, Django knows where our template is located. What we just need to do is to come into our views. Instead of returning an HTTP response, we're going to render an HTML page. So we'll say render home.html. Now Django knows where to look for this home.html, which is a template folder. So let's come back and then hit refresh. Okay, now it gives us an error. It says template name. So this is on line 6. This simply means it's not seeing this template. That's because the syntax here is incorrect. So return render, then we need to add request, something like this. Now this is showing us that it's requesting for this page. Let's just go back and hit refresh. Now as you can see, it's completely blank. This is because in our home.html we have nothing there. But let's make some changes and do something like let's say h1, and let's say welcome to home. Once we save it, come here, refresh, we can see welcome to home. So right here in our home.html, we can do more things. Now we've done this. Let me show you how to specify another URL. Now we don't need this my site again. What we just need is this URL. I only showed you how to specify URL for the home page. Let me show you how to specify another URL. So I'm just gonna copy paste this. Since it's a list, we need to add comma. And then right here, I'm just gonna do something like slash. Let me say slash ball, just a random thing. Then it should look for views.ball and the name should be ball. Now right here in the views, we also need to create a new function named ball, take a request, and then we can also return, let's just return an HTTP response for now, and let's just say this is ball page, and let's save this. Come into our URLs and also save this. So now once we come to our project and go to /ball and hit enter, you can see it says page not found /ball. So once we come here, the problem is from here, so let's hit slash and then come here and refresh. Okay, it says page not found, so we're gonna debug where the error is coming from. BALL /BALL. Okay, so let's see, it will be registered here. So you can see that it's having /ball right here, but when we go to /ball, it doesn't work. So let's see, the current path ball didn't match any of these. Okay, let's come back here now. Let's hit something like, let's just hit another word. I come refresh. Okay, now you can see that it shows. So the reason why it's not showing for /ball is still weird, but let's try. I changed that and let's see, and hit refresh. Okay, now as you guys can see, it's working when we go to /ball. So sometimes you might just fall into some errors like that, but debugging it is actually a very important and crucial part in your programming journey. So now we hit /ball is working again. So that was just a weird error, but we fixed it. So now I can go to the home, and then I can also go to /ball. We can see the 2 pages, and right in the home I can also make a link which will take me to ball. So I can do something like an h2, and I can say click, and right here I can do this and say F, and then I want this to take me to ball, so I'm just going to say ball like this. I'm going to say yeah to go to ball. Let me just leave a space here. So once I save this and come back to the home, click here to go to ball. Once I click on here, you see it takes me to the ball page. So that's how to navigate through your URLs. So now that we have the URL sorted out, the next thing we need to do is to make sure that we know how to send data from the views to the HTML or the template. Let me explain that in detail. So we have this view here in the home page. So let's say we have a variable, a Python variable, and its name. So let's say this name is something like, let's just give it a random name like John. So I can pass this name variable into this home.html, and this is going to collect it, and it can say welcome John or something like that. So let's do that. So once I have this variable, for me to send it into this home.html, I'm just going to put a comma, curly braces, and let me say name should be name, which is this variable. Now I can easily save that. When I come here, I can just say welcome, and for me to collect that, you can see that the name is name. So I'm just going to use a Ginger format, and I'm going to say name. Now for now, this is just the basic way of collecting variables from your views to your template in Django. So instead of it saying name, once you put these 2 curly braces, Django recognizes as a variable. So it's automatically going to look for the name of the variable from the views and then say that variable, the value of that variable. Now once I go to home, so you see it says welcome John. It doesn't say welcome name with these curly braces. Now that's how it is done. And I can also make it more fun, by telling them to input something like your name. You say input a name in a form, and then I'm just going to send it to the /ball page saying your name is this. So let's just basically do that. So right here I can just say form, And in the form, I want to give it an input. Let's give it an input type text, and we need to have a name. Let's say a name of name, and then placeholder of input name, and then let's just close that. Put a BR, and then another input for the submit button. Submit. I think this is fine. Close it. And now this form, I want it to go to the ball page, so I'm just going to say ball like this. Very easy. And then that is what we need. So once I also want to use a post method. Now I can use a get method. The difference between a post method and a get method is that a post method is more secure. Now when I use a get method, it's going to show me whatever I'm passing in the URL. Let me show you, explain that in detail. So once I come here and I go to, let's say, Google, right here in Google, if I search for, let's say, code with Tommy, you can see that search, if I look in here, you can see that it's passing this query equals to code with Tommy in the URL bar. So whatever I'm inputting in this input is being shown in the URL. And if you are using a post method, it's not going to be shown in the URL. What is just going to be shown is /search, like this. /search. It's not going to show the rest. That's the difference between a post and a get. So a post is very more secure. Let's just close this up quickly. A post is more secure. Let's say when you are using authentication. Let's say when you want to log a user in. You don't want to show the person's username and password in the URL bar. Or let's say when you're paying with a credit card, you're shopping online. You don't want to show those kind of details in the URL bar. So there we use a post method. So if you want to use a get method, this is how to use a get method. Once you just hit submit, is a get method automatically. But I want to show you how to use a post method in Django, specifically in Django. So for me to do that, I have to specify method and I have to say post. So if I don't specify this method, let's say it's just blank like this, it's automatically going to use get. But now I want to use post, I specify that. And then whenever I'm using post in Django, I need to add something called CSRF token underscore token, like this. This is just to make sure our data are secure and it can't be stolen. And once I save this, I come back here, it says input name and submit. So let me input a random, okay, Henry, and I hit submit. You see it just comes to this ball, nothing is done with that data. Now what we want to do is, since we are sending this into the ball, we want to collect it in this ball view and send it to an HTML page called ball.html and just show that your name is whatever the user input. So we're going to say if request dot method is equals to post. That's if we're using a post method. We're just going to say name should be equals to request, okay, request dot post name. So now that we have whatever the user inputted and saved it in this name variable, what we just need to do is to pass it back into the template. So we need to create a new template here and name it ball.html. That's a weird name, but just for tutorial purposes. So right here, we're just gonna copy this up and then paste it here. So return render by rendering the ball page, and then we're also passing this name variable back to this ball page as this name variable, if that makes sense to you. Now we can save this, come into ball, and we can say h1 your name is name. So now let's test this out. Let's go back to the home page Let's input a name of team. Once I hit submit, you see it says your name is Tim. Let's go back and try with another one. Let's say Timothy. I spelled that wrong, but let's go. So it says your name is Timo. So whatever you input, it takes that. Now this is the basic concept that is being used. Let's say once you are signing up, this is just how you're going to input your username, your whatever you want to input. Once you hit submit, you're just going to take those data and save it in the database. So now that we know how to do all this concept, which is really good, what I just want to show you guys is how to include static files. So what are static files? I'm sure if you guys are familiar with HTML, you know that you can't build a website alone with HTML. You need your CSS, and to make it more interactive, you need your JavaScript. So, but how are we going to include all these right here in our project? Now, that's what is called static file. All those CSS and images, JavaScript, any external file you're going to be adding into your HTML file is a static file in Django. So how will we let Django know where to look for this static file? It's pretty similar to what we did in the template file. So we can close this up and then write in the root directory. I'm now going to create a new folder and just name it static. So here in this static, any external file I need has to be here. So now let me create a new file in there and name it home.css. So now this CSS, I'm going to have to link into this home.html so I can design some stuff. Okay, but if I just do this and just do the normal, let's say, linking, it's not going to work. I promise you that. So we need to come into settings.py. And then we're going to scroll all the way down. So down here is where we're going to do all the main work. So what we just need to do is to specify it the way we specified the template file. And that is very easy. We're just going to say in cap letter static files underscore theirs should be equals to, now we're gonna need os.path.join base underscore there comma static, like this. And then right here we can just put a, not here, right here we can just put a comma. Now that we have this done, we can now come in here and then include this home.css. So you know that we have an h1, yeah, let's just do a basic stuff, h1, and then let's just say color, let's give it a color of red, just to know that we have some styling in here. So right here in home, you know, we have to also link that the normal way, but we can't link it the normal way. I'm going to link it the normal way first and then show you what it gives us. So you know the normal way we link CSS files into our HTML. So in an head tag, I'm going to say link rel style sheet f, and let me say it's home.css. Home, oh no, yeah, home.css, and then I can close it like this. But now when I save this and come here, we can see that welcome John is still black, but right here in my home.css I said it should be red. Why? That's because we can't link external files the way we do in our normal HTML project. Django has its way of doing it. For us to do this, we first need to load something into our template file in this format, 2 curly braces, 2 percentage sign, and say load static. So now this is going to help us to load all the static files present in this static folder. Since we load static, right here in our F, the way we do it, we're gonna say curly braces static space one hyphen this, and then percentage, and close that. Now once we save this and come back and refresh, okay, now we see that it is still black. Okay, so this is an H1 and this is an H1, so we're obviously wrong somewhere, and where we are wrong is in linking this. So we need to add our percentage right here. That is where the problem is. So let me just quickly refresh, curly braces, percentage, space, then static, then space, then we're going to put one of these. In there is where the static file, the name of the static file is going to go, so which is home.css, and then we're also going to close it using this. Now once we save it and go back, it has to be red. Now you can see welcome John is red. So that's how we can bring in external files into our HTML. We can also do it for images, JavaScript, any other thing. So now that we have this done, what I want to introduce you guys to is the Django admin panel. So Django has this really cool stuff which I use called the admin panel, which allows you to maintain your site, your database, anything on your site from this built-in admin panel. So you don't need to start building in your own admin interface from scratch. No, they already have that for you. And what we just need to do is to go to our site /admin. Now once we come here, this is the admin panel for this our project, but it's saying we should log in. This is done for the security of our site, because when we host our site, we don't want any random user to just go there, go to /admin, and then have access to all our database. That would be risky. So us as the developer will be able to create a specific admin login details right here in our console. Now let's do that. I'm just going to bring up my command line. Let me delete this terminal. So this is the terminal that is running the project. Let me create a new one. And then for me to create a new login, I'm just going to say Python manage.py create super user. Now in Django, an admin user is called super user. But as you can see, it gives me this error, says no such table as auth user. Okay, now this is getting a little bit more above the basics. So we need to do something called migrate. So Django automatically has all this database for users, so that we don't need to start creating new database. So when we want to authenticate a user, sign a user up, register a user, it automatically have those database for users, groups, and all those kind of stuff. But we need to migrate this database, all these models, I would say, into our database. You're going to get it in like 5 minutes. Let's just do it. So it's a two-way step. We need to first say Python manage.py make migrations. So for now, there's no changes. You're going to understand soon. But let's just make Python manage.py migrate. Now this is going to migrate everything. As you can see, the auth, the admin, the content. So because we haven't done this, that's why it gave us an error. But now we can bring back this our command line. Once we say Python manage.py create super user, you can see now it tells us to create a new user. It says username. Let me give it admin. It says email address. Let me give it admin@g.com. It says password. Now let me just give it a password like this. Now it says super user created successfully. I can now use these credentials which I just did to log in here. So let's try that. Admin, password, enter. Now it's going to log me into the site. Boom. Now you can see that I'm in this site. If I come to users, or the users I have created are going to be right here. You can see that I just created a new user, a super user, but it's still a user under our site. It's now under this database, under this table. So now that we have that done, that we've created the admin panel, the next thing, and maybe the last thing for this video, is to show you guys or introduce you guys to Django models. So Django models, what are Django models? Django models, I'll say they are like tables in a database. So once we come here, you can see here we have this database. We have two tables for now. The first one is the user, which has username, email, first name, last name, and staff status. We have group, nothing for now. But what I want to say is this is a Django model. So this is a Django model named users. It's very similar to a database, but it has an higher advantage because you can connect with your database, delete, update, perform any CRUD operations without even writing an SQL code. That's why Django is very unique and special. So this is, let's say, database table. It's also a model, Django model, which has this field, admin, and all these email address. So let's classify this as a Django model with this field. But now I'm going to show you how to create your own Django model. This is the default Django model that comes in with your Django project. But let's say you want to have a new Django model for, let's say, the posts. Let's say you are building a social media. You want to have a new Django model or a new database table for all the posts a user has done. Let's just say for a product or anything. Let's just come to home. Now let me show you how to create that from scratch. I'm going to come into my app. In models.py file, this is what we're looking for. You know how to just write a simple Python class. That's what we're going to do. So we're going to say class. Let's give it a new let's say a new model, and let's name it product. And then for it to be a model, we have to say models.model. Now let me use this to reference as I'm coding. So this product is basically equivalent to these users, so it's the name of the Django model. But what I want to do now is to specify each table or each row so that I'll know how many fields is going to be there. So the first thing is name, or let me say title of the product. Then I'm going to say models dot character field. Char field, it means character field. So we're specifying that this is a string, a character field. Right here you can see that this admin is obviously a character field. This is an email field. This is a character field, and this is a boolean field. So just the data types in Python are equivalent to fields in Django. And then it needs to have an attribute. That attribute is going to be max_length. So this is going to say the maximum amount of letters that can be, or words, or just the maximum amount of letters that can be in this field. Let's give it 1,000. So the title must not be more than 1,000 letters. Now let's give it another one. Let's do something like price. Now the price of this product should be, let's cancel all this, an integer field. An integer field doesn't need to take any attributes. So does this, let's see what again. I think for now let's just stick with these two, and let's say owner. So the owner of this product should be a character field. For now let's stick with these three. So we've created this. Product is the name, title, price, owner are the rows. But once we come to home, we don't see it there. Why? That's because we haven't migrated it into this database as I did earlier. Now I hope it's making sense now. When we did let me quickly scroll up a little bit. Remember when we did python manual.py migrate, and we also, before that, we did python manual.py make migrations. So these two steps are gonna make all these changes we did, are gonna take it and then put it in our database. But before we do that, we need to make sure that once ever you create a Django app, you can see we created my app earlier in this video. We need to make sure that in our settings.py, we scroll up again. In installed apps, we have that installed as the app. So we say my app. Very important. If we don't do this, we're not going to be able to migrate our model right here into our database. So let's do that now. So right here, we'll say python manual.py make migrations. Nice. Okay. It says product.owner character field. must define a max length attribute. So if you guys are spotted, we had an error because we didn't specify max length. So as I said, whenever you're working with character field, you need to add max length. Or if an integer field, you don't need to. So I'm not going to dive into all the fields we have in this video, but you can also learn that on YouTube or with the Django documentation anyway. So now we can run this. Okay, let's first make sure we save this and we can run this again. So it shouldn't give us any error because we have everything right. So it says migrations for my app, which is this app, because this models of py file is under this app. So it says create model product. Good. And now we can migrate. So Python migrate.py migrate. So it's migrated it into our database. But if we still come here and hit refresh, it still doesn't show. Why? One more step. We can cancel this now. What we need to do is to open admin.py file. Now this file is what controls everything that we see on this page. So now for us to add that model we created into this admin page, we need to register it here. And before we can do that, first of all, okay, let's register it. So we're going to say admin.site.register, and then we need to register that model. But before we can register that model, we need to import that model. Say from .models, or do we want to import the product model? So now that we have this product model imported, we can just register it. We hit save, we come here and refresh, boom. You see now that we have products. And once we click on product, for now we don't have any product. Let me add a new product. The title of the product is ball. The price, let's give it 120. I think the price would have been bet. Okay, let's give it 120 like that. And the owner is the admin, something like this. Now once we save this, you can see we have product object 1 with these details. Now let's add another. Let's add another one, and let's say basketball. I don't know if this is too high, but let's go for it. And let's say this one is owned by admin 2, the second admin. Now we have these two things. You know what we want to do now? We want to get all this data in our database and then show it right here in our HTML page. So like under this welcome John, I can cancel all this or remove all this and then just show everything we have in this database. I think it's very cool. So for us to do this, very easy. We come into our views. The way we imported that model in our admin, we need to do the same. Say from .models import products, and then here in our home, we're just gonna say product with an S equals to product dot objects dot all. Now what this does is that this product model is going to get all the objects in it. So in Django, once we have a new field or a new data, we call it object. So as you can see, it says product object 1, product object 2. So we're saying product.object.all, which means get all the objects we have here, every single thing, and then save it in this products variable. Now you know how we pass this variable. We're going to do the same thing. So I don't think we need this variable. Let's just pass it into our HTML, and then right here we're looking for home.html. Yes, so we don't need this. Let's just say welcome, and then right under here let's have a new div tag, and in the new div tag let's have an h3, and then we're gonna say we're gonna use a for loop. Now let me explain something in detail. So remember, as I said, it's gonna get all the objects and save it in this product variable, but it's gonna save it as what data type? It's gonna save it as a list data type. So I know when it's a list or a dictionary or something like that, we need to use a for loop to loop through all the values in it. So we're gonna say for something like this. This is how to use a for loop in Django. Say for product in products, and then we'll say product dot title. So what this is going to do is that for all the products in this products model, it's going to just return all the product dot title. So it's not just going to say all of this, it's just going to say basketball and it's going to say ball, just the title which we want it to return. And after doing that, we need to end for loop. You know, in normal Python we don't end for loop, we just use the syntax and the indentation to know when our for loop is ended, but we don't have that in HTML, so we need to say end for. That's how to do it. We hit refresh, we come back here. Once we refresh it, now you see we have ball and we have basketball. If I come here and add a new product, and let me say tennis or racket, no, let me say tennis ball, and let me give it a price of 20, and let me say the owner is admin 3. So once I save it, it says product 3 was added successfully, and I come here and refresh. You can see now that we have that added. Now that's very good. That's what we want. We want everything in our database to show here. So I hope that I have been able to introduce you to Django and show you the basic features, basic concept, what Django is about. If you really enjoyed this video, please don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe. Having that said, thank you so much for watching, and bye for now.